Human offers alien girl a gift of peace, but human learns the gift marks him as her chosen kin. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's return to our main character. The storm came without warning, rolling over the cerulean plains in a sweep of blue static that made the air hum like a distant choir. Ethan Cole braced himself against the metal frame of the field shelter, the panel vibrating under his palm with each pulse of ion wind. His breath fogged in the chilly air, even inside the thin atmosphere dome flickering around him. He checked the scanner, still glitching, still useless, then looked out toward the ridge where movement shimmered in the storm's glow. At first he thought it was just drifting dust, but the shape steadied, lifted, and resolved into a figure leaning against a stone outcrop. A soft teal light traced along her silhouette, not harsh like lightning, but alive, almost like a quiet heartbeat. Ethan stepped through the dome's wavering edge, his boots crunching over mineral sand. "Hey," he called above the hum. "Are you hurt?" The figure turned. Large eyes, luminous like glass catching sun, locked onto him with a mix of caution and exhaustion. Her skin held the color of seafoam and dusk, shifting gently with each breath. Ethan raised his hands to show he meant no harm. He pulled a small cloth from his pack, white fabric embroidered with a simple peace symbol his sister had stitched before he left Earth. "It's okay," he said gently. "This is for you. It means peace where I come from." He offered it the way someone might offer a warm handshake on a cold morning. The alien girl, Arisha, though he didn't know her name yet, stilled. Her gaze dropped to the cloth, then snapped back to his face with an intensity that made the air feel suddenly thinner. Her voice, when it came, was soft and careful, as though each word carried weight. "Human, do you understand what this offering means?" Ethan smiled, unaware of the threads he had just pulled. "It means goodwill. Nothing more." Arisha exhaled, a fragile sound carried away by the storm. The faint teal glow beneath her skin brightened, spiraling softly along her arms like a signal answering some ancient call. She touched the cloth with both hands, holding it as though it were a declaration. "This marks you," she whispered, almost reverent. Ethan frowned, confused. "Marks me." But before she could answer, the storm swelled, sending a curtain of shimmering light between them. Ethan instinctively stepped closer, guiding her back toward the shelter with a gentle hand at her elbow, unaware that this simple touch completed a ritual her people considered sacred. For Arisha, the meaning was unmistakable. The human had accepted a bond older than stars. And Ethan, still blinking at the glow dancing across her skin, had no idea his life had just changed. The storm softened by the minute, leaving a dim haze drifting across the shelter's threshold as Ethan guided Arisha inside. The metal frame vibrated gently, settling after the worst of the ion wind passed. The air felt warmer here, held together by faint humming circuits that cast a pale gold glow across the cramped interior. Arisha stood still just past the doorway, her hands folded around the piece of cloth with the peace symbol. The soft teal light beneath her skin pulsed in slow intervals, almost like a quiet echo of her heartbeat. Ethan knelt beside a storage crate, rummaging for a thermal wrap. "You must be freezing," he said, offering it to her. "This storm can drop the temperature below 30 degrees in minutes." Arisha tilted her head slightly, studying the way the wrap unfolded in his hands. She accepted it with both palms, her movements deliberate, as if every gesture mattered. "Human Ethan," she said softly, "you gave me a symbol of peace. And in my culture, such a symbol carries deeper meaning." Ethan laughed lightly, unaware of the layers she spoke of. "I promise it was nothing formal. It is just something my sister made." A gesture. Arisha's eyes flickered with something he could not read. "In my people's tradition, a gesture may define a connection." Ethan sat back on his heels, dusting off his gloves. "Well, I am glad it helped. You were out there in the storm alone. I could not just walk past." She studied him with a stillness that made the tiny shelter feel even quieter, as if the entire world paused to listen. "You touched my arm," she said. You guided me here. Ethan blinked, unsure why she said it in such a solemn tone. Yes, I wanted to make sure you got inside safely. The teal glow along her arms shimmered, moving like soft ripples of light. Where I come from, she said. To offer peace and then to guide another by touch is not accidental. It is part of an old binding custom. Ethan's eyebrows lifted. Binding? Like partnership? Like kinship, she whispered. Chosen kin. A union of trust. Ethan froze, caught between confusion and a subtle warmth that tugged at his chest. Arisha, I am honored, but humans do not bind that quickly. She lowered her gaze to the cloth, running her fingers across the stitched lines as though decoding an ancient map. I do not expect you to understand all of it now, she said. But your actions carry significance. They awakened a mark that cannot be hidden. Ethan leaned closer, trying to see. A mark. She lifted her wrist slightly. A faint ring of light circled it, glowing softly beneath her skin like a halo. Ethan felt his breath catch. That happened because of me? Arisha nodded, her voice quiet, steady. You offered peace without asking anything in return. That is a rare thing among the stars. A soft hum filled the shelter as the power core stabilized, washing warm amber light across her features. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck, trying to process the weight of her words. I did not mean to cause a misunderstanding. I was just trying to help. Arisha stepped closer, close enough that he could see the shifting patterns of teal in her eyes. Sometimes kindness is not a misunderstanding, she said. Sometimes it is the beginning of something neither person expected. Outside, the storm faded into a distant hum, leaving the two of them standing in a silence shaped not by fear, but by an unfamiliar connection neither yet understood. Morning crept slowly across the cerulean plains, bringing a faint shimmer of gold that filtered through the thin shelter walls. Ethan sat near the small heater, tapping at his portable console, pretending to check atmospheric readings even though his thoughts never stayed on the screen for more than a moment. Arisha sat across from him, wrapped in the thermal fabric he had offered earlier, her posture calm yet alert. The faint ring of light on her wrist glowed softly, pulsing in slow intervals that aligned almost perfectly with her breathing. Ethan stole a glance, curiosity tugging at him. Does it hurt? He asked gently. Arisha lowered her gaze to the glowing mark. No. It feels like warmth. Like a signal I am meant to hear. Ethan let out a quiet breath. I really did not know my gesture carried that kind of meaning. Humans do not have anything like this. A peace offering is just kindness. She tilted her head. Kindness is powerful. That is why it shapes our rituals. It is why a symbol can bind two lives into acknowledgement. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck, processing her words. Where I come from, choosing family is a slow thing. It takes time, shared experience. Arisha studied him with eyes that reflected shifting hues of teal. Time does not weaken true connection. It only reveals its shape. Ethan smiled softly. That is a beautiful way to put it. A gentle vibration passed through the shelter's flooring as the storm's residual currents moved across the plains. Arisha looked toward the entrance, her expression thoughtful. When you guided me inside last night, she said, I felt something I have not felt since I was young. Safety. Ethan lowered his console, giving her his full attention. I am glad. Anyone would have helped you. No, she whispered, shaking her head slightly. Not anyone. Many fear what they do not understand. You reached out without hesitation. She lifted the cloth again, running her fingers along the stitched symbol. This pattern, you said your sister made it. Does it carry meaning for your own family? Ethan nodded. Yes. She always believed symbols matter. She said peace should begin with something small enough to fit in your hand. Arisha breathed in slowly, absorbing his words. Your world sounds gentle. Ethan let out a short laugh. Not always. But we try. Most of us, at least. She looked at him with a softness that made the space between them feel warmer. Trying is enough, she said. Trying is what marks intention. Ethan shifted closer, just enough that he no longer needed to raise his voice. Arisha, if this symbol means something to your people, then tell me how to respect it. I do not want to do anything wrong. Her eyes shimmered with gratitude. To respect it, she said, you simply acknowledge that we are connected, not bound by force, but recognized by choice. Ethan considered this quietly, then nodded. Then I acknowledge it. And I am honored. Arisha's breath caught, her teal glow brightening gently. For a moment the shelter filled with a soft, warm light, not from machines, but from her. The silence between them was steady and full, like the calm after a long journey. Outside, the last of the storm dissolved into the clear morning sky, leaving the two of them facing a day that neither had expected, shaped by a gesture that was meant to be simple, but had opened a door neither knew existed. By midday the shelter had warmed enough for Ethan to step outside and check the surrounding terrain. The storm had carved shallow grooves across the mineral sand, leaving trails of shimmering dust that glowed faintly in the sun. He surveyed the horizon, scanning for any sign of returning weather, then glanced back toward the shelter where Arisha stood framed in the doorway. The soft teal glow under her skin brightened whenever sunlight touched her, as if her body responded to the warmth naturally. Ethan lifted a hand. "Looks clear for at least a few hours," he said. "If you feel strong enough, we can walk to the ridge station. It is less than a mile from here." Arisha stepped forward, her movements graceful but deliberate. "I am strong enough," she said. "Your shelter gave me time to recover. And your presence," she paused, as if choosing her words carefully. "Your presence brought calm." Ethan felt a quiet heat rise in his chest at the sincerity in her tone, but he kept his voice steady. "Then let us go slowly. The ground is uneven after storms." They started walking side by side, their steps leaving paired tracks in the silvery dust. The air smelled faintly metallic, the way it always did after ion winds rolled through. Arisha brushed her fingertips along a nearby stone, watching the particles flare briefly under her touch. "Your world," she said, "does it look like this?" Ethan smiled. "Not at all. Earth has oceans, forests, mountains. The sky changes color with the hour. And it smells like rain instead of static." She listened closely, as if storing every detail. "I would like to see rain," she said. "We have storms, but they are bright and dry. They do not fall from the sky." Ethan glanced at her, charmed by the simple wish. "Maybe someday. There is nothing like standing under a gentle rain." Arisha held the cloth with the peace symbol close to her chest. "If I ever see it," she said quietly, "I hope it is with someone who understands its value as you do." Ethan's steps slowed. "Arisha, when you talk about value, what does it mean to your people?" She lifted her wrist, the glowing ring faint beneath the sunlight. "Value is connection. It means seeing another not for their purpose, but for who they are. That is why the mark forms. It recognizes intention." Ethan absorbed her words. "So the mark is not something forced. It responds to choice." "Yes," she said softly. "Your kindness woke it. Not because of ritual, but because your heart aligned with the gesture." Ethan looked ahead at the distant ridge, trying to steady the swirl of emotions rising within him. He had expected this mission to be routine, a simple geological survey on an unfamiliar world. He had not expected to meet someone who looked at kindness as though it were a rare and precious element. "Arisha," he said, "I want to respect your traditions, but I also need to be honest. I do not know what our connection means yet." She turned to him, the soft glow in her eyes reflecting the sky. "You do not need to know. Understanding comes with time. What matters is that you do not turn away." Ethan nodded slowly. "I will not." The breeze shifted, carrying a faint chime-like sound from the distant ridge station. Arisha lifted her face toward it. "Your world teaches peace," she murmured. "Mine teaches meaning. Perhaps together they teach balance." Ethan felt the truth of her words settle gently inside him. As they continued walking, their shadows stretched long across the glowing sand, moving forward in quiet agreement, neither fully aware of how deeply their paths had already intertwined. Ethan and Arisha reached the ridge station just as the sun climbed higher, casting long bands of pale gold across the metal structure. The building stood half-buried in mineral sand, its exterior panels humming softly as they absorbed energy from the bright sky. Ethan pressed his hand to the access console, relieved when it chirped and the door unlocked. "Power is still running," he said with a smile. "That is a good sign." Arisha followed him inside, her footsteps light on the metallic floor. The interior was dim, lit only by narrow strips of soft blue lights lining the ceiling. Dust floated gently in the air, disturbed by their movement. Arisha's eyes adjusted instantly, the teal shimmer beneath her skin brightening as if to answer the low light. Ethan set his gear on a nearby table and activated the main terminal. Lines of data flickered to life. I can send a signal to the outpost, he said. They will send a transport for us. Ari Shah stood beside him, watching the console with curiosity. Your machines speak in patterns, she said. Do you always know how to interpret them? Ethan chuckled softly. Most of the time. Her gaze lingered on him, steady and thoughtful. Understanding is a gift, she said. But so is patience. You offered both. Ethan felt something shift quietly in the space between them, a warmth that felt deeper than gratitude. To ease the tension, he cleared his throat. There is a viewing deck upstairs. It might be a good place for you to rest while I run diagnostics. Arishan nodded and followed him to a narrow staircase. As they climbed, soft beams of sunlight filtered through panels in the roof, scattering patterns of shifting color across the walls. When they stepped onto the deck, the landscape opened in all directions. Past the ridge, the plains glowed with a faint iridescent sheen left behind by the storm. Arisha approached the railing and placed her hands gently against it. Your world must feel small after seeing this, she said. Ethan shook his head. Different, not small. Earth has a way of holding people. Cerulia, he paused, taking in the endless horizon. Cerulia feels like it is studying us. Arisha seemed to consider that. Our world listens. It sees intent. It reacts to meaning. Ethan leaned against the railing beside her. Is that why the mark appeared? She turned her wrist toward him, the faint ring of light glimmering under the sun. Yes, she said softly. The world responded to your intention. And what about you? Ethan asked quietly. Arisha looked at him, the glow in her eyes reflecting the bright sky. I respond to truth, she said. And your truth has been kindness. Ethan felt his breath catch, not from surprise, but from the gentle certainty in her voice. There was no pressure, no demand, only clarity. She was offering understanding, not expectation. The intercom crackled faintly behind them, interrupted by static, signaling that the system had begun transmitting. Ethan glanced back, then returned his gaze to Arisha. They will reach us soon, he said. Maybe in an hour. Arisha nodded but did not look away from him. An hour is enough, she said. Time does not decide meaning. Intention does. Ethan stood beside her in the warm, shimmering air, feeling the truth of her words settle softly inside him. The world below was vast, unfamiliar, and bright. But for the first time since he arrived, it felt less like a place he was exploring and more like a place he was being invited into. Ethan adjusted the transmitter settings, watching the signal strength rise and stabilize on the console screen. The soft hum of machinery filled the ridge station, steady and calm, almost blending with the faint wind outside. He glanced toward the viewing deck where Arisha remained, her silhouette outlined by the bright sky beyond the glass. When he stepped back onto the deck, he found her standing exactly where he left her, both hands resting lightly on the railing as if listening to the world breathe beneath them. The glow under her skin shifted slowly, responding to the sunlight in tranquil waves. Ethan approached her side, careful not to disturb the moment. The signal is strong, he said. The outpost should pick it up soon. Arisha nodded, though her focus remained fixed on the horizon. Your machines speak far, she said, but your intentions speak deeper. Ethan chuckled softly. You make everything sound more meaningful than I expect. She turned her head toward him, her teal eyes gentle. Meaning is not something I create. It is something I observe. Ethan absorbed her words, then rested his arms on the railing beside her. Their reflections in the glass seemed closer than their bodies, standing shoulder to shoulder. Arisha, he said quietly. You talk about intention, connection, kinship, and I want to understand it. But I also do not want to assume something I do not comprehend. Arisha lifted her marked wrist, the faint ring glowing softly even in the daylight. This mark does not demand understanding, she said. It simply reflects a truth that has already happened. Ethan looked at the mark, then at her. And what truth is that? Her voice softened, almost like a warm breeze brushing against a quiet field. You acted without expectation. You offered peace without asking what it would cost. In our culture, that is the heart of kinship. It means you saw me not as an obligation, but as someone deserving of care. Ethan felt the words settle into him, not heavy but grounding. I did not think of it as something profound, he admitted. I just wanted to help. Arisha smiled faintly, and the glow beneath her skin brightened for a moment. That is why it became profound. A soft chime echoed from the transmitter inside the station, signaling a completed cycle. Ethan knew it meant the message had reached someone, that transport would arrive soon, but he found himself reluctant to move away from the stillness they shared. "When your people arrive," he said, "will they understand that I did not know what the gesture meant?" Arisha took a small step closer, her expression thoughtful. "They will understand your intention, but they will also see what the world has seen." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Which is?" "That connection has formed," she said. "Not because of ritual, but because of truth." Ethan exhaled, feeling both humbled and uncertain. "I do not want to disrespect your culture." "You have not," she said firmly. "The only way to disrespect it would be to deny what already exists." He studied her face, the calm sincerity in her eyes. "And what do you want me to do?" Arisha lifted her gaze toward the shimmering plains. "Walk with honesty," she said, "and do not fear the connection that has already chosen you." The station lights flickered as the wind shifted, casting patterns of gold and blue across the deck. Ethan felt the moment settle between them like a quiet promise, unspoken yet undeniably real, shaped not by ritual, but by the simple, steady bond that had taken root without either of them meaning to. Ethan heard the faint rumble before he saw anything, a low vibration rolling through the metal floor of the Ridge station. He glanced toward the horizon through the viewing deck window. A soft shimmer of light appeared in the distance, stretching across the plains like a rising curtain. Arisha stood still beside him, her teal glow responding with a quiet pulse. "Your people?" Ethan asked gently. Arisha listened, her expression unreadable. "The resonance matches their vessels," she said. "But it is early. They should not have reached us yet." Ethan frowned. "Maybe they were closer than expected." Arisha shook her head slowly. "Or perhaps the mark on my wrist summoned them faster than the signal did." Ethan turned fully toward her. "Does the mark call to others?" She lifted her wrist, the faint ring glowing with a soft inner light. "It announces connection. To my people, connection is not private. It is something the world acknowledges." The shimmering light on the horizon grew brighter, spreading outward in graceful arcs. Ethan watched the display, mesmerized by its beauty yet uneasy about its meaning. "If they see the mark," he said carefully, "what will they expect from me?" Arisha met his eyes with a calm steadiness. "They will expect honesty. They will expect intention. They will expect that the bond is real." Ethan's chest tightened, not from fear but from the weight of something he had not prepared for. "Arisha," he said, choosing his words slowly, "I care about what happens to you, and I care about respecting your culture, but I do not want them to think I made a promise I did not understand." Arisha stepped closer, the glow beneath her skin reflecting softly against the glass. "Ethan," she said, "the mark does not bind you to a future. It reveals the truth of a moment. The moment you offered peace without hesitation, the world saw your heart before you did." Ethan exhaled, feeling the truth of her words settle into him. "And what if they misunderstand my heart?" Arisha's voice softened. "Then I will speak for it." The shimmering horizon brightened again, this time accompanied by a gentle hum that filled the air like a distant chord. Ethan felt the vibration through the floor, subtle but growing. He looked at Arisha, whose posture remained composed yet quietly resolute. "Does this bother you?" he asked. "Them arriving so fast?" She looked out at the approaching glow, her expression touched with something like nostalgia. "My people are guided by meaning. They believe connection should be honored. They come not to demand, but to witness." Ethan stepped beside her, resting his hand lightly on the railing. "And what do you want them to witness?" Arisha turned toward him, her eyes clear and steady. "That the connection is real because it was born of truth, not ritual." The station lights flickered gently as the hum grew louder, settling into a soft, harmonious tone. Outside, the shimmering light began to take form, stretching upward like a pillar of soft blue radiance. Ethan watched it rise, feeling neither fear nor pressure, only a quiet awareness that something meaningful was approaching. Arisha stood close enough that he could see the reflection of the glowing horizon in her eyes. "Whatever happens," she said softly, "do not fear their presence. Your intention has already spoken louder than any gesture." Ethan nodded slowly, understanding her more deeply in that moment than he had over the entire day. The shimmering light drew nearer, illuminating the station with soft waves of color, and Ethan felt a strange calm wash over him. Not because he knew what was coming, but because Arisha stood beside him, unwavering, as the world answered the bond they had never meant to form, yet could no longer deny. Ethan felt the air change before he saw anything. The soft harmony that had been rolling across the plains deepened, as if countless quiet notes layered themselves into a single breath. The shimmering pillar of light approaching the ridge station slowed, its glow bending gently, as though acknowledging Arisha's presence. Arisha stepped forward onto the viewing deck, her posture steady and composed, yet there was a subtle tremor in the glow beneath her skin. Ethan stayed close behind her, not touching, but near enough that she could sense his certainty. The pillar of light resolved into a graceful vessel, almost crystalline in appearance, hovering a few feet above the ground. Its structure pulsed in soft hues that shifted like flowing water. Ethan stared in awe. "It is beautiful," he whispered. Arisha nodded. "It listens," she murmured. The vessel reflects the connection it arrives to witness. A narrow walkway of light extended from the vessel, touching the rocky ground without a sound. Two cerulean figures descended with slow, fluid steps. Their skin carried the same teal glow as Arisha's, though theirs was muted, as if dimmed out of respect. Ethan instinctively straightened, unsure of how formal he should appear, but Arisha gave him a reassuring glance. "Do not fear them," she said gently. "Their purpose is understanding." The two figures reached the base of the deck. One lifted their hand, palm forward, greeting with a gesture Ethan recognized as peaceful and open. Arisha mirrored it. Her voice, when she spoke, carried a calm resonance Ethan had not heard before. "I am safe," she said, "and I am not alone." The taller cerulean turned their gaze to Ethan. Their eyes shimmered with layered teal patterns that moved like shifting currents. Ethan felt no threat in their expression, only curiosity, deep and thoughtful. "Human Ethan," the cerulean said, their voice carrying a musical tone. "You offered a symbol with true intention. Do you understand what it awakened?" Ethan swallowed, steadying himself. "I understand that it meant something sacred to Arisha, and I understand that my intention was simply kindness." The cerulean held his gaze for a long moment, then nodded as if satisfied. "Intention shapes meaning. Meaning shapes connection." They turned to Arisha. "The mark has chosen truth." Arisha lifted her wrist, showing the glowing ring that pulsed with a soft, inner light. "He did not know our customs," she said, her tone protective yet honest. The moment was pure, not ritual. The shorter cerulean stepped forward, studying the mark with a gentle expression. "Purity of intention is rare," they murmured. "Few offer peace without expectation." Ethan felt the weight of their words, but not as a burden. Instead, it felt like something quiet and profound. The taller cerulean faced him again. "The bond is not a demand," they said. "It is simply recognition. You may walk from it if your heart is uncertain. But if you stay, it is because you choose meaning." Ethan looked at Arisha. Her eyes glowed softly, steady and warm, waiting without pressure. He turned back to the ceruleans. "I do not walk away from people I care about," he said simply. Arisha inhaled, her glow brightening in a soft wave that moved across her skin like morning light. The ceruleans exchanged a look Ethan could not interpret, but it seemed pleased. The taller one stepped back toward the vessel. "Then we witness," they said quietly. "We do not decide." The walkway of light brightened slightly, as if greeting the acknowledgement. Ethan felt Arisha's presence beside him, calm and grounded. The vessel hummed softly, a sound that felt like acceptance rather than judgment. And for the first time, since the mark had appeared, Ethan felt no uncertainty, only the quiet understanding that something true had taken shape, witnessed by a world far older than his own. Ethan stood beside Arisha as the cerulean vessel hovered in a quiet hum over the ridge, its soft blue radiance spilling across the metal deck like drifting mist. The two cerulean envoys remained near the walkway of light, speaking in low tones that blended with the steady rhythm of the wind. No one hurried. No one demanded. The world around them seemed to hold its breath, waiting for something gentle, something true. Arisha lifted her wrist, studying the faint, glowing ring that marked her connection to Ethan. The light pulsed slowly, as if it recognized the moment. "This mark," she whispered, "does not bind you to my people. It binds me to your truth." Ethan turned toward her, the breeze brushing softly against his face. And what does that mean for us? She stepped closer, her glow catching the sunlight and scattering it in delicate patterns across the deck. It means, she said softly, that whatever we choose next is ours to shape. The taller envoy approached, their expression serene. Arisha, they said, you are free to return with us. But the connection you carry is recognized beyond ritual. If you leave, it follows. If you stay, it deepens. Both paths are honored. Arisha looked to Ethan, her eyes bright with layered emotion. Before I decide, she said, I need to know if your heart walks away or stands beside mine. Ethan exhaled slowly, every thought settling into a single, quiet certainty. I did not expect any of this, he said truthfully. But I also did not expect someone like you. Someone who listens, who sees meaning where most people ignore it. Arisha's gaze softened. You do the same. Ethan nodded. I cannot promise a future I do not understand. But I can promise that I will not run from what is real. The words settled between them like warm sunlight. Arisha lifted her hand slightly, stopping just short of touching his. Then hear my truth, she said gently. The world marked you because your intention reached me before your hand did. I choose to honor that. The envoys watched silently, their faces calm and unintrusive. Ethan looked toward the vessel, then back at Arisha. If you leave, he said quietly, I will let you go. But if you stay, I will walk this connection with honesty. Arisha closed her eyes for a moment, the glow beneath her skin brightening in a peaceful wave. When she opened them again, they reflected the sky and the soft shimmer of the vessel behind her. I choose to stay, she said. Not because I must. Because meaning brought me here, and truth keeps me here. The envoys bowed their heads in graceful acknowledgement. No disappointment. No pressure. Only acceptance. The walkway of light retracted slowly, folding back into the vessel like a closing petal. The ship rose a few feet higher, its glow softening until it resembled a drifting star. Arisha stepped closer to Ethan, her voice barely above a breath. Your world once felt distant to me, she said. But now it feels like a place I want to understand. Ethan smiled, the warm kind that reached the eyes. Then we will understand it together. As the vessel drifted into the sky, the wind carried a soft resonance across the ridge, a whisper of approval from a world that had witnessed their choice. Arisha stood beside Ethan, the soft pulse of the mark fading into a gentle glow, no longer a symbol of confusion, but a quiet promise. And in the stillness that followed, without a single word more, they both knew the connection had become something deeper, something chosen, something true.